This dresser and nightstand set is so filthy, but I'm going to see what I can still do with it. This video is sponsored by Inokraft. Hello everyone, welcome back. This is a nightstand and dresser set that I got for free. Now it has been sitting in the garage for quite some time, has been chalk painted previously, heavy wear and tear, there is dust and grime, wax spills and drink spills all over, but it's still a diamond in the rough and can turn into something beautiful. I start first by removing the handles, the cabinet drawer, and then all of the drawers. While doing that, I noticed that some of the drawers have some gross spills in them, so that will have to be fixed or covered. And also a few of the drawer slides are disconnected and one of them is completely off. Next, I decided to use some good old water in a rag just to wipe all the grime off and see what I have to work with underneath. Now, I start removing all the things that are not going to stay on this piece. This detail kind of dates the piece and I want to remove that, so I use a flathead screwdriver and thought it was an applique that I could remove off, and then I found out that it's actually a solid piece of wood, so I have to use a different approach to remove that. There is a piece of wood trim on the front that I think it will just be easier to figure out what I want to do by removing it. I may keep it, I may not, but I'm going to go ahead and remove it to start with. Originally, I tried to pry it off, but only found out that it is screwed on, so I flipped the dresser upside down to remove that front trim board. Next, I noticed that some of the bottom legs that touch the surface, the particle board is missing, eaten away, and it's on both sides. There's good chunks missing, and then on the other leg here, the furniture glide has been smashed down into the particle board and is making it split. That is a structural issue, so it will need to be repaired. I use a flathead screwdriver to remove that furniture glide and then use a syringe to apply glue down into that crack, clamp it up, and let that set. I want to take a moment here and give a special thank you to Rhonda from Colorado for buying me some coffees through the Buy Me a Coffee. Every purchase of a coffee, super thanks, or an item off my Amazon wish list really helps my channel a whole lot, so thank you all very much. For the missing particle board areas, I mixed up some Bondo. It's a 2-part epoxy mix, and I apply it on pretty thick here because I'm going to use this Bondo to help reshape this corner that's chewed up and missing. That's a pretty thick glob of Bondo, so I do let the glue in the Bondo set for a couple hours and then come back with my Surf Prep sander and sand that smooth. Now, if you watched my last video, I did a little montage of my Surf Prep sander, the sanding sponge, and the sandpaper just flying off over and over because the Velcro pad is starting to lose its stickiness. I was able to find a replacement, thank goodness. Local to me, I found a paint shop called Munger Paint that carries Surf Prep supplies. So if you are local to me in the Oklahoma City area, it is on 50th and MacArthur, and they happen to sell these replacement pads. And it was easy peasy, remove it, put the new one on, tighten the screws back up, and they have this protective pad that protects your whole pad. So I have extra protection, and I'm so glad that I found this store so I don't have to wait weeks for my stuff to come in. I can go straight there and get it and get right back to my project. I start out with some 80 grit sandpaper to kind of get the Bondo into the squared off shape of the bottom of this dresser so it matches and looks cohesive all around, and then went back with some 120 grit sandpaper to smooth it out. Now I know I'm going to paint this area, so it doesn't have to look absolutely perfect, but there were still a few little chunkies, and when you're working with a large area of Bondo like that, it usually takes more than one application to get the idea, shape, or full coverage that you're wanting. A little bit more sanding, and there we go. Now on the drawer slides or guides that were loose, the screws have been ripped out, so I just put some Bondo in those holes, let that set, and then also sanded those smooth. I forgot to film it, but I did just put those drawer slides back into place and screwed them down. I'm doing two separate things or ideas with the body of the dresser and the nightstand versus what I'm doing to the drawers. So I figured it'd be easier to follow along with the process if I separated them. So for the body of the dresser, this is chalk paint. And more than likely, I know it was painted years and years ago, and the finish was wax. So I'm cleaning this with some mineral spirits and some steel wool and wiping away the excess to remove any previous wax. Then I get to sanding. I start with some really aggressive sandpaper. This is 60 grit, and I'm just using that on the area that has that detailed trim that I thought was an applique, but it is not. And I work my way through that top trim piece, moving it and sanding it down to where it's nice and smooth, and you can no longer tell that there is this leaf vine design from probably the 90s. I know kids nowadays think that 90s stuff is cool, but I was a teenager then and I do not want to go back, so goodbye 90s. After I got the vine design trim completely smooth, I went back over it with some 120 grit sandpaper and then went over the rest of the surface of the body of the dresser with that 120 grit sandpaper as well. And I don't think I've ever noticed this before, but it looks like my sander has a little straight lined face on it. And now that I've seen that, I don't think I'm gonna ever be able to unsee that. Now after all of that sanding, I use my air hose to blow that dust away, and then I repeat this process all over again on the little nightstand. This was hours and hours of sanding, but when you see the final look, it was definitely worth all that. Next, I wiped all that sanding dust away to get a clean surface, kind of look and see what I'm working with. This set is a pine wood and particle board mixture. On the top of both the nightstand and the dresser, while I was sanding the top smooth, that middle piece is particle board and there has been some water spills, so it was lifted up and you could see that exposed particle board by the time I was done sanding. So I decided it was better to make it all one piece. So I filled in that crack with Bondo and then any other areas of damage that I wanted covered. Once I was done Bondoing, I let that set and then sanded all the areas smooth. Okay, now that I got the prep work done, it is time for modifications before I get to painting. I would like to add some casters to both the dresser and nightstand. So for the nightstand, I found these industrial looking stem and sleeve casters. So I marked the middle of the bottom of the leg, and then I'm using my drill bit here to mark how deep I need to drill the hole for this stem on the wheel. It's a pretty simple process. Just drill a hole in, and then once that hole is nice and clean, just put the sleeve down in there and use a hammer, and there's a little tongue and groove on the edges to help hold it into place. I do add the wheels later, but that's after painting. All right, with the design of this furniture, the dresser isn't quite as easy to add legs like the nightstand was. I looked through industrial wheels and most of them would have to require building a whole new base, but I did find these L-shaped industrial style wheels on Amazon. I will make sure to link them down below in the description for you. The platform that the wheel is actually attached to would stick out from the side of the dresser, so this is the modification I came up with to fix that. I traced with my marker what the shape of the bottom of the dresser is, and use my miter saw to cut a scrap piece of redwood down to size so it would fit snugly behind that and you wouldn't even see it. Adding a little bit of wood glue and then using my nail gun to nail them into place. They are hidden back behind and also gives a thicker platform to attach the industrial L-shaped wheels to. After that, I'm pretty much getting there and almost ready to paint. The only thing left to do is to address the exposed particle board. Most of the products that I use are water-based, so I can't put that directly on particle board. So I like to seal mine with a couple coats of clear-based shellac, and then I let that shellac set overnight. Here are some facts and my personal opinion of the Inokraft D1 LVLP air spray gun. With its all-inclusive package, it has an unbeatable value. And the kit includes all essential accessories and commonly used nozzle sizes. You don't have to do additional research or make extra purchases because in the kit you will have nozzle sizes that will allow you to spray most primers, paints, and top coats. So once your box arrives, you're ready to go. The gun is heavy duty, but not overly large, definitely designed with storage friendly in mind. This will help keep your workspace organized and efficient. The product is also designed with beginners in mind. In the box is a very detailed quick start guide. That, with clear scales and markings on the exterior of the gun, setup was a breeze. If you need a more thorough explanation of the gun, inside the box is a more comprehensive owner's manual. Online is a library of instructional videos so you can quickly learn about the gun and understand how it works. Full setup and learning about the gun only took me just a few minutes, and then I was ready to start testing it out. Operation of the gun does require an air compressor. You don't necessarily have to have a 30-gallon one like I do, but the gun operates at 50 psi, so as long as your air compressor can do that, you are good to go. After attaching your gun to the air hose, the quick step guide does require a few more steps and adjustments to make, and then it is time to start spraying my primer. For primer today, I am using Kills Gray, and this is a nice gray color that is good for dark to medium colors of paint. You want to filter your products before you put it into the canister because you don't want any clumps or chunkies blowing through your gun. Next, I always test spray my product to see how wide the spray pattern is, or thin, or the amount of paint. Once I'm happy with the settings, I start spraying the primer on the pieces. Advanced automation technology of the gun ensures superior misting capabilities. This is my first time using the Inokraft, and it has amazing coverage. With the spray pattern and the amount of product coming out, I was able to quickly prime both the dresser and the nightstand. The dresser is obviously a much larger item than the nightstand, but the Inokraft was able to keep up on the dresser as well and paint them both very evenly. No matter what size of item or project, it sprays consistently so you get a professional outcome. Take a few moments here and just see how easy this gun is to use. And I just want to remind you that I have never used this gun before. This is the first time, and just minutes after I opened it out of the box. After 2 coats of primer, this is where I'm at. Next is paint. I'm using Wise Owl's 1 Hour Enamel in Jet Black. Again, I filter my paint before putting it into the canister, and then I am ready to start spraying after I do a few test sprays. 1 hour enamel is high dollar expensive paint, and that's one thing I like about the Inokraft D1 gun. As I spray this, you can see that there is not a lot of overspray, hardly any at all. So say goodbye to wasted oversprayed paint. The accuracy of this gun helps you optimize the usage of your paint. So ultimately that saves you resources and that saves you money. This gun is also eco-friendly. The accuracy allows you to use less paint, so that's less product, less chemical to use. Also, the plastic cup you wash out and isn't a liner that you toss, so that's also eco-friendly, and I like that. The less damage we do on this earth, the better it is for us humans. I sprayed 2 layers of the black paint and it came out super professional, very smooth. I'm very impressed. Finally to the drawers, and they are taking a different direction. I'm going to strip the chalk paint off to get it back to the natural wood that's underneath that paint. I like this 15-minute formula that is made by Clean Strip. You just apply a liberal amount on. I cover it with some saran wrap whenever it is like 80 degrees or above so it doesn't dry out on you, and let that set, and then come back with a plastic scraper and then just start scraping away all the old paint. Now between the nightstand and the dresser, there are a lot of drawers. So I have to repeat this process over and over and over. There are 13 drawers total between the entire set. So this took me hours and hours, but again, the end result was perfect, exactly what I wanted. And it was okay because that particular morning a thunderstorm rolled in, so I just opened my garage door, listened to the rain splatter on the driveway, and just worked away and shut out that outside world. After the stripping process, the stripper does need to be cleaned up and neutralized, and I use odorless mineral spirits and some 4/0 fine grade steel wool. I don't know why it says odorless because it's still really stinky, so make sure you are in a ventilated area and wear a mask. I did strip the bottom shelf, the drawers, the cabinet door for the dresser, and also that front wood trim piece back to the natural wood. After the mineral spirits was dry, it is time to sand. So there is some paint in some areas and some old finish that didn't come off, so I went over the drawers with 120 grit sandpaper and then went back over it with 220 grit, and again that took me a couple hours to do that. On the cabinet drawer, it did take a little bit of scraping with my carbide scraper and some hand sanding, but I eventually got all of that paint off, back to the natural wood, and I wiped all the dust away to get ready to stain. I'm using Varathane in the color Kona. I know my canister is kind of hard to see because I used it to prop up and spray something in the past. When I apply my stain, I like to use an old piece of t-shirt that is clean and apply the stain. I kind of just wipe it on in any direction, making sure to go across the grain. So I do circles and then do long swipes with the grain. You let the stain set for a few minutes and then come back with a cloth and wipe off any excess stain and then let that set. After the stain was completely dry, I came back with a 220 grit sanding sponge and went over the surface to kind of bring out that wood grain just a tiny bit more. Now before I apply top coat, I do know that I have new handles that I want to put on these, so I used my handle hole guide and marked and drew new handle holes. Now before I apply top coat, I need to clean out my gun from paint, and people always complain about that process, but it's super easy. So I dump out the excess paint, wipe it out, rinse it out with water. Then I put some soap into the canister, put the lid on, shake it up real good, rinse it out, take it apart. You just scrub it with a brush and some soap and water. Put everything back together, put water in the canister, and then take it outside and just spray air through it until it sprays clean. Super easy. Then I can go ahead and put my top coat into the canister. I spray a couple coats of the clear enamel for protection on all the areas that I stained. The Inokraft gun did very well spraying the primer and paint, and it does equally even better at spraying top coat. It's just amazing. You get a very smooth professional finish, no bumpies after it's all dry. I like this gun so much, I have gotten a link that I can put down in the description, so if you are interested in purchasing this gun, you can get yourself a little bit of discount with my link. If you have been thinking about getting a spray gun or looking for a new one to try, I highly recommend this one. It has an economically friendly price for a high quality performing gun. Oh my gosh, finally to the final touches. Thank you so much for sticking with me this far. You know that I like to clean out my drawers after spraying and add my Howard feed and wax, let that set for a few minutes and come back with a microfiber cloth and buff away that excess. I put the handles back on, but I still have an issue with the drawers. They're not quite done yet. Remember the nasty stains after stripping, sanding, cleaning? That is as good as I could get it to. So I came up with an idea of using old Atlas paper from cities that are known for being industrial cities and lining the drawers. So the nightstand drawer and the top 3 drawers of the dresser got lined in this paper. I chose Philly, Detroit, Cincinnati, and San Francisco. I painted on a layer of that clear enamel, put the paper into place, and then covered the paper with one more coat of clear enamel and let that set. Now the hinges for the cabinet door and the wheels for the nightstand are not black like they are for the dresser wheels, so I'm just going to spray those all black and coat them with that clear enamel to make it all match. And then it's time to put the casters on. The nightstand is super easy. I use a mallet and just go through and hammer the stem into the sleeve one by one. For the dresser, I put the L-shaped casters into place. It was super easy. The kit comes with all the screws, and all the products that I used today will be listed down below in the description. And then this piece is done. Y'all, wow, this is the piece that we started with. It is so gross and disgusting. But this is what it looks like now. Can you believe that's even the same nightstand? I mean, I did the work in the transformation, but I still can't even believe that these are the same pieces. Look how smooth that paint and top coat job is with that gun. I just love how Kona looks on pine, and then with that black, the jet black, it just comes together with the new casters to make an industrial look. This set definitely went from icky to industrial. I hope you enjoyed this flip. That is all I have for you today. Until next time.